would not be accepted. That would be now I mean, it's an interesting idea. It's somehow the track system is different evaluation criteria, is a bit of a different idea. Of course, you're right, this consolidation process will be an effort that we need to do, and we will need to look at the individual papers, discuss the quality, but that is typically the responsibility of the PC chairs to then, at the end of the day, do the discussion. Again, I think that with the different evaluation criteria, we come to a finer grained and hopefully a little bit fairer, let's say, evaluation of the different types of papers.
Yes, perhaps I should not have positioned them as exclusive options. Perhaps these things could go hand in hand, of course. I think you're right with respect to the criteria, and it could still perhaps be combined with a wider acceptance.
Yeah. To respond to that, that is pretty much also what the PC chairs said in their opening, and also what we discussed the steering committee meeting, that it's very, BPM reviewers tend to be very critical. One reason being that it's asked for the three aspects. I think we will end up accepting more papers. Why? Or should put it the other way, I think we get more papers with better grades. Because we are not so negative because we ask too much from every paper. I think at the end of the day we will accept more papers, or we'll have more positive reviews. We'll have this year we had very negative reviews, if I understand you. It's just a few papers that have only positive reviews among 116 submissions. So I expect in general we have more positive evaluation, then that would allow us to accept more papers, even though just only in tracks 1 and 2, then in track 3 as well, because that's basically to a large extent a new track. But I mean, it's about also the submission at the end of the day. Yeah? So we need strong submissions, and we can only, let's say, accept excellent papers if they are submitted. So,
yeah, I would expect the same. Thank you.
So I think there is a role for the senior PC members to ensure that, let's say, more papers get through, not because we are more flexible, but because they are simply good. And purely statistically, if you have 4 reviewers, it's very unlikely that not one of them will be negative. And I think there's a role of the senior PC. But one of the PC chairs of this year would like to add to that.
Okay, yeah, first thank you. I think it's, but I can see at many conferences that people think about how to improve their conferences and so on. What I didn't get is that how you would like to, how you reach in increasing the number of submissions. So you speak about cutting the cake. I think you need a bigger cake. So how to get a bigger cake? So how to inform the world that you now have a special management track and that people will submit? So new people. So,
that's a challenge. So the first challenge is also to increase the number of the core, let's say, of track 1 and track 2. And we hope that that when we are able to produce a bit more positive, maybe a bit fairer reviews, that it will not be something that happens like that. It is important to increase first in track 1 and track 2 the number of submissions, and we'll hope to do so with also in having fairer reviews and also accepting more excellent papers. That would be one thing. Related to track 3, it's an effort that we now start, and we have visible people from that domain, and we need to look at the channels. So it's a if you want a marketing activity to let's say to distribute this new structure and to make a strong signal also in the management community that yes, your excellent paper will be accepted at BPM, which was not there before, because we had over the years, we had submissions, and many of the papers did not make it, and that also led at some point that the colleague would say, well, that's not my conference. And so it's a process that will last, I guess, but at some point we need to start.
So thank you, Matthias, for a great presentation. So I think what at least I saw and you very well pictured was how to restructure the internal of the BPM basically community in a way that we are more receptive and basically these tracks, which resonates very well. What I think maybe I missed a little bit on how we are asking ourselves with respect to the outside of the community, and specifically now, if you look at it from industry point of view, or from from the way that how technology is used outside of technology, outside of this, BPM for a few years now has been, for maybe up to 5 to 10 years in the industry, has been identified as a commodity, right? And so, are we asking ourselves question? Are industry leaders who are in trouble with their current business BPM portfolio, are they coming actually with questions and seeking answers from us on what to take the BPM to the next level? Are we asking questions of how to open up BPM to the realities of how work gets done in the enterprise today? Do we really want to keep it like in BPM, or look at it as a new way? Look at basically database community. They had this challenge with SQL versus NoSQL a few years ago. They asked this hard, very critical question from themselves, and they adapted themselves to make the whole community, the whole database community, more relevant to what is happening in the enterprise now. Still, they are striving. So if we are like taking ourselves, looking at 5 years from now, as an academic community, just as being a little bit cynical and self-critical from the community, are we in the path to be sort of commoditized from an academic point of view by keeping ourselves close, or are we looking at also looking at HCI community, other community, and how to the pillar that you had, how to expand into those, into a little bit of more broader notion of processes, not only the one that we are looking at today.
Yeah, of course, I don't have a final answer to that. I think it's important to attract industry also to the conference, to somehow have people in the room to which we can talk, and maybe this management track helps in attracting people when it's about the business value of certain BPM concepts, methods. Maybe this is something that industry people would like to see, and we should try to get them involved, and should try to play this game and to find out more about this. So the hope is, my hope is a little bit that the management, that's a more business value oriented way of looking at BPM, would also drag in industry people. And I definitely agree to you that there are lots of, let's say, hard problems in industry where we could offer solution, but it's just now separated world, so that we don't get in touch. So.
There are lots of hands. I propose we take one more question, and then we have to take it to the coffee break, I'm afraid.
Thank you that you grabbed this issue, because I think that this is the challenges of the BPM communities. 9 years ago, I was among you all. Right now, I'm almost actually on the another BPM communities in the business and administration side. I think in the eras of the digitalizations that we are currently right now, it's a very, very tough task also for an organizations. I'm leading a team of digital processes, and right now we would like to think about how we could really integrate the BPM technology, the BPM science, into the innovation process of the organization. And that is actually the challenge, how you could really look to the right technologies on BPM and maybe another science into an organization. That is right now my job, and it's actually quite challenging, and I'm really, really happy to see that you have included in this conference, and maybe it would be a good opportunity to attract more collaborations between the industries and the research, and to get more out of the BPM as a whole discipline.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I think this addresses this track 3, and you say, well, it's now very good to have this track 3, and hopefully we'll have the first results in Sydney 2018, and we have an exciting management track that looks into this, that attracts people and looks into these aspects also of, let's say, digital transformation aspects, which are very broad and very prominent. And I think that BPM, we can play a role in that as well. And but we need to come together, I guess.
As I said, I think this is a very good discussion topic, but we have to move to the coffee break. I also have a short announcement, but I propose that we first thank Matthias for his great keynote.
Oh, thank you.
So the short announcement is that we now have a coffee break, and it's very important. So not just the different pieces of the cake are important. Like we also need to look at the cream on the cake, and these are the research prototypes. So at 10:40 here, there will be the demos of all the research prototypes. So see you back then here. Thank you.